8-0, combining yesterday's record and today's record. I believe he actually just took down really, really strong opponent in the first round, and he is just on a roll. I mean, I feel like a lot of times, we saw this in 2016 too with like Wolfglick and Marcus Thatcher playing through day one, and normally think, oh yeah, you might be like, have some fatigue from playing so long, but often in fact it actually gives you confidence because you kind of use the momentum that you've built up in that first round. And oh man, okay.
Over on Gabriel's side, Gabriel, of course, one of the best players in Latin America right now. I believe this might be Brazil's first representative on stream at the World Championships ever. So here he is running a team of Lunala, Xerneas, Tapu Koko, Incineroar, Kangaskhan, and Ditto. Ken over on the other side using Salamence, Xerneas, Tapu Koko, Groudon, Shedinja, and Incineroar.
Yeah, so I love seeing the tech Pokemon here on both teams. Right, you have all these strong Pokemon that you typically expect to see, and then there's the Ditto, obviously, on Gabriel's end, and then the Shedinja on Zheyuan's end. So I think Ditto actually could be really quite good here. Obviously, this is Xerneas kind of war, so both players I most surely expect to see Xerneas. I mean, obviously, the restrictors are going to be brought out here. So for Gabriel's end, the question is, how do you beat the Groudon? And I think Tapu Koko, probably not the best answer there. Probably going to want to bring Kangaskhan, especially if the Kangaskhan is running a dark type attack. If it's running that bite, that's actually one of the best ways to deal with Shedinja. So I expect to see Kangaskhan, Xerneas, and Lunala. It's definitely from his end. Love to actually see Ditto as the last one. I think it actually could put in a lot of work, especially if it actually copies Primal Groudon. You have a way to deal against the opposing Groudon. It gives you basically a third restricted Pokemon. So I think that's something we certainly could see in this matchup. And for Zheyuan's end, Shedinja may be a little bit harder to bring, especially because you're going up against a potential Kangaskhan. But we saw on stream yesterday just how scary it can be, especially under a very strong player with all the mind games of going for all the scary moves that Shedinja has.
Here we are now, Zheyuan sending out Tapu Koko and Incineroar on Gabriel's side. Gabriel leading with Lunala and Kangaskhan here, so both players getting ready to make their first moves. Here we go, Aaron. Game 2.
Yeah, so once again...
Round 2, sorry.
Once again, the Incineroar against the Lunala and the Kangaskhan sounds like something we saw earlier on. Incineroar definitely loves being in this position. You threaten the Lunala with dark type attacks, you're not going to take any damage from Lunala. Kangaskhan is intimidated now, so low kicks and double edges aren't doing as much damage. Very curious to see how these Tapu Kokos are built. We often see very offensive ones, obviously at the North American International Championships, one with the Fairy Z move and Protect won it, but obviously we saw Assault Vest in the previous set as well. That's certainly viable. And so first big question is, what does Tapu Koko want to do here? Does it have maybe some means of speed control, something like the Electro Web? Does it have a big Z move, Electrium Z here into something like Kangaskhan? Could be very scary. This first turn, both players obviously have fake out pressure, with Gabriel having the advantage with the faster fake out, but Lunala here really won't be able to do very much against Incineroar. Incineroar definitely being in quite a good position right now.
Kangaskhan on Gabriel's side switches out as Gabriel switches Xerneas in, so both of Gabriel's restricted Pokemon are now on the field. Xerneas exerts its Fairy Aura here, which boosts all Fairy-type attacks on the field as Lunala on Gabriel's side. There's Ditto! Ditto, with that Imposter ability, will now transform into one of the Pokemon on Zheyuan's side, and it looks like it transforms into Incineroar, so it gets an Intimidate right there. So Ditto will use Intimidate onto Zheyuan's Incineroar. So wow. All right, well, really just... I mean, Ditto, one of the great things is just really trying to transform into those restricted Pokemon as Tapu Koko uses Volt Switch, hits into that Xerneas slot, boosted by that electric terrain, does some good damage to that Xerneas actually, and switches out. Really, really good damage. I mean, this could be a good time, honestly, for Groudon just to come out here, putting on pressure with Precipice Blades immediately, and there it is. Yeah. Sending out that Groudon, it is going to revert to its primal Groudon form and be able to exert a lot of pressure while not being threatened with so much pressure as well. Yeah, so really cool to see the Ditto come out, but probably not copying what it really wants to in this matchup. I think ideally Ditto wants to copy one of the restricted Pokemon, and like you mentioned, that Volt Switch damage on Xerneas was certainly a significant amount. Depending on how it's trained and depending on Groudon turn, and the Snarl comes out, which is so critical against the Xerneas. Really great play from Zheyuan there on the first turn. Yeah, so he's playing extremely well right now, just trying to mitigate the amount of damage that can be dealt. So with that switch and with that Snarl, really, Gabriel does not have that much offensive presence right now, especially with an unboosted Xerneas.
No, not at all. I mean, maybe Ditto can go for the fake out onto Groudon. The Xerneas can switch back out into something like Lunala, and then at least you threat in with the Z move against Groudon. But then that means Incineroar can go for a Z move. I just feel like the combination of Snarl and Precipice Blades right now is so good against Gabriel's team. Like, there's just really no safe switch-ins. You can also switch in the Kangaskhan. That honestly might be a little bit better. The goal, I think, is to pivot out the Ditto, backed out initially to copy the Groudon. So yeah, it actually ends up being the Kangaskhan coming out, not wanting to take a Snarl, which would break the Shadow Shield and do some good damage.
Yeah, as Gabriel's Ditto uses Fake Out onto that Groudon. Groudon cannot move this turn as Incineroar on Zheyuan's side continues to use Snarl. Not going to matter too much, but one thing about Ditto is that commonly they carry the Choice Scarf item just to get that quick speed boost and be able to outspeed opposing Pokemon. So Gabriel now forced to switch that Ditto out.
Yeah, if he is running that Choice Scarf, and even if not, I mean, you're not going to do anything with Incineroar right now, so Ditto most certainly will be switching out this turn. Kangaskhan, however, at least gets into a pretty good position. It's not intimidated anymore, and I think this is most definitely going to be a fake out into Groudon. Question is, who does Ditto want to switch into? If you switch into the Lunala, you risk eating up a Snarl. If you switch into Xerneas, also eat up a Snarl, taking less damage, but putting Xerneas in kind of an awkward position where it doesn't want to set up. Either way, though, I think Gabriel has been able to at least put himself into a better position, because as soon as the Precipice Blades goes off, he is going to be in a really, really tough spot. Nothing on his team resists that ground-type attack.
Yeah, and here we go. Gabriel forced to switch that that Ditto out. Lunala takes the field, could possibly just eat a Snarl right up on this switch. So Gabriel right now has been forced to switch
pretty much every turn.
Everything. I mean, the only damage he's been able to throw out is really just one fake out on that Primal Groudon, which didn't do much at all as Kangaskhan Mega Evolves, as Kangaskhan uses fake out here. Gonna hit into that Incineroar slot, just trying to prevent a possible Snarl with a critical hit occurring in that
does it hit?
Little damage there, and yeah, there's Precipice Blades, connects with both Pokemon, hits that Kangaskhan and that Lunala. So that Shadow Shield on Lunala is broken now as Incineroar flinches and cannot move.
Yeah, so kind of an interesting decision to go for the fake out onto Incineroar, prioritizing the lack of the special attack drop there, and I think what Gabriel is trying to set himself up for is a potential double up into this Groudon with the Moongeist Beam and something like a double edge or low kick, maybe even go for the Z move to guarantee the knockout onto Groudon. The downside there is, of course, Zheyuan can just go for a protect with Groudon. Incineroar right now still putting on a lot of pressure with double edge, and Gabriel just hasn't been able to get any damage off so far. I think what he really wants to do is maybe set up Tailwind, let Ditto come in for the Kangaskhan, and then go for Precipice Blades.
Yeah, and Kangaskhan uses double edge, gonna try to get big damage out there, huge damage on that Incineroar.
Oh,
Incineroar hangs on with just a sliver of hit points right there as Kangaskhan knocks itself out from that recoil. Incineroar just hangs on with just a little bit, does not have a berry to eat away at. And here is a Z move, so it's going to be a menacing Moonraze Maelstrom from Gabriel's Lunala. So going to deal some big damage to that ground. If it hits, gets well, for sure we'll get the KO on that Incineroar there.
Yeah, I actually think now though that if the Ditto comes in, it will be able to copy the Groudon should this not knock out. I don't expect it to get the knockout. And then I think Ditto just clicks Precipice Blades and maybe just wins the game, especially because Zheyuan's last Pokemon is that Xerneas. So Ditto might be absolutely essential here. Not even needing Tailwind yet, because if it is running that Choice Scarf, you know you're going to be faster than everyone. So let's see how much damage this does. I don't expect it to get the knockout. I think Gabriel probably doesn't want it to get the knockout either.
Yeah, so big damage dealt out of that Groudon.
Oh,
it actually gets the knockout on that Groudon, so you know, that is a huge offensive presence on Zheyuan's side, getting KO'd as Incineroar on Zheyuan's side uses U-turn, lands into that Lunala and switches out. So, you know, Ditto and Xerneas are still in the back for Gabriel, so he has to figure out what he wants to send out.
Yeah, actually getting the knockout there, showing that the Groudon isn't very bulky there, so that's a really important damage calculation for both players to know. I was thinking, yeah, maybe you don't want it to get the knockout because then your Ditto can just come in and copy the opposing Groudon, which I thought would put Gabriel in a really good position, but still definitely a solid play. It felt like Zheyuan was, you know, in a really great place with that Groudon earlier. That explains why, you know, he was fine taking the Precipice Blades, really didn't want that special attack drop onto Lunala, so nice play there, nice decision making there by Gabriel to not get Snarl, getting the big knockout there. Now, what's interesting is who Zheyuan is going to bring in here. The Z move has been expanded from Lunala, so that does make it significantly weaker. Tapu Koko showing that it is a more offensive variant given how much damage that Volt Switch did earlier. And they're mind games because right now, obviously, there's the Xerneas in the back, could bring that out, but Ditto here could copy something really, really essential. So lots of mind games right now for both players. Do you bring in the Ditto? And nope, it's going to be the Xerneas.
Xerneas on Gabriel's side takes the field as Zheyuan switches in his own Xerneas. So now it's going to be a battle between these two Xerneas. This is... All right.
Yeah, definitely going to be interesting as Zheyuan's Fairy Aura goes off first. So either Speed Tire, that's going to be faster. But Tapu Koko right now actually getting the potential Fairy Aura boost from the Xerneas, if it is running like a Fairy MZ, might just be able to knock out one of either of these two Pokemon. And Zheyuan's Xerneas in a does have the potential to Geomancy. One of the things about Ditto is that it actually copies what's directly across from you. So if the Lunala gets knocked out, Ditto will be forced to only be able to copy the Tapu Koko. So I think Tapu Koko right now actually in a really good spot offensively. Here's a Z move coming out. Let's see. It is the Fairy MZ.
Yep, a Twinkle Tackle from that Tapu Koko boosted by that Fairy Aura as well. Coming from this much more offensive-oriented Tapu Koko is going to be trying to dish out some damage, possibly even try to get a KO on either this Lunala or the Xerneas as the Tapu Koko Twinkle Tackles that Xerneas. So Xerneas has already had some damage dealt to it and might get the KO from this range here, and it does.
Getting a clean knockout there after the Volt Switch damage. The Xerneas just going down. Pretty much not being able to do anything. Now, the upside is that should the Xerneas on Zheyuan's end go for a Geomancy, could the Ditto actually be able to come in and copy it, and that actually could be absolutely huge. So let's see what Xerneas opts to go for.
Oh, there's a Geomancy, so Gabriel gets a Ditto in there and will automatically transform into a Geomancy Xerneas. So, oh boy. And again, with those, Ditto tending to carry Choice Scarf will be guaranteed to move before these Xerneas on Zheyuan's side. So Gabriel really just finding some great position right here late.
Yeah, this is definitely going to be a fun endgame. Obviously, there is the Incineroar on Zheyuan's end, but I think like one thing you could do if you're Zheyuan, for example, is protect the Xerneas, switch the Tapu Koko out into Incineroar, go for maybe a fake out the following turn on the opposing Xerneas, but then that opens the window for the Lunala to just go for a Tailwind. So perhaps it's better just to go for a Moonblast into the opposing Lunala. The question is, will Ditto be able to get the knockout onto the opposing Xerneas with a Moonblast? That's absolutely going to be critical here.
Yeah, and this is, That's
really coming
tough.
down the wire. Yeah,
that's tough when you see your opponent's Ditto just transform into
a +2
Xerneas, and you just knocked out their Xerneas, and they get another one.
Here we go. Oh, yeah, Ditto, the Dazzling Gleam.
Yeah, Ditto uses Dazzling Gleam. It is boosted here, does big damage, and gets the one-hit KO on that Tapu Koko. So now Zheyuan's Xerneas uses Dazzling Gleam as well.
Will that knock out Lunala? Let's see.
That is big damage, and that does get KO Lunala.
Critical hit
too. Oh boy.
Man, that really might have mattered.
Yeah.
I was expecting the Moonblast to come out to guarantee the knockout because it feels like if the Lunala survives and gets the Tailwind up, then the game is just over.
And with just one sliver of health survives, does have access to that fake out, and again with Ditto carrying Choice Scarf, you can't block it. So you can't go for that move where you typically just protect here. So that is tough if you're Gabriel. I mean, so close. A critical hit on that Lunala. Incineroar uses Fake Out here, hits in that Ditto, does good damage, flinches, cannot move, and Xerneas on Zheyuan's side just goes for the easy Moonblast to guarantee the KO. So that is, oh man, that is tough for Gabriel.
Yeah, that's one of the damage calcs where it feels like maybe you didn't need the critical hit to get the knockout, and maybe came down to like a damage roll, but the critical hit ensures it. Hard to say, not knowing how these Pokemon are trained exactly, but definitely kind of a heartbreaker there. At least without the critical hit, you might have a chance of surviving there. So yeah, it was interesting to see the Dazzling Gleam come out, but it made sense because given how low the Incineroar was on Zheyuan's end, if you get the Moonblast off, you don't have enough damage against the Xerneas. The following turn, you can fake out Moonblast, but if that doesn't get the knockout, then Dazzling Gleam will just seal it up. So maybe kind of forced to go for the Dazzling Gleam, getting the critical hit. They're kind of bailing Zheyuan out there.
Yeah, and of course, Zheyuan had very strong board position early on. I mean, Gabriel spent a lot of turns just trying to backpedal, just trying to switch things in and out, just trying to claw his way back, and he almost had it too. I mean, he was very close to being able to seal the deal there.
Yeah.
towards that end game. But again, Zheyuan played it well from start to finish.
Yeah, I mean, I really wonder if it might have been worth it to not knock out the Groudon with the Z move and copy the Groudon instead of copying the Xerneas, because Press's Blades actually is so good against Zheyuan's team as well, especially if he's not bringing the Salamence. By copying the Groudon, you're going to be faster than the opposing Groudon. You're going to get the knockout onto it with Precipice Blades because it's already taken damage from something like a Moongeist Beam if you're not going for the knockout. And then you can just click Precipice Blades, which destroys Tapu Koko, destroys Groudon, destroys Incineroar, and Xerneas can't do too much damage in return. So I was thinking that was actually maybe a potential major win condition. The major thing here, though, is that Ditto is clearly very good in this matchup. Being able to copy either Groudon or Xerneas is huge, especially against Zheyuan's team.
Yeah, again, I mean, how disheartening is it if you're playing up against an opponent, you use your Z move, you use up a lot of offensive resources just to knock out that Xerneas, and then Ditto comes in and just transforms right back into a Geomancy Xerneas. That's tough. That's so tough to watch. Of course, Aaron, if you do transform into that Groudon, Precipice Blades is a great move, but sometimes it misses, and that would have been tough. You still had to stay on the same beat. I mean, if that Ditto did transform into Groudon and was able to use Precipice Blades, and then it missed that Groudon, that is tough.
Yeah, it is, although I still think it might have been worth it there, honestly. Just because, Zheyuan there was almost always going to have Xerneas as his last Pokemon, so Salamence isn't going to be in the back, which means you're free to just fire off Precipice Blades pretty much every turn.
Right.
So, I mean, obviously a hard decision to make, and like you said, accuracy does factor into it as well, and that is something that you do have to watch out for, but definitely a really, really tight game there. Not sure how much the Dazzling Gleam would have done without that critical hit, and it felt like it kind of mattered, honestly. I do think, typically Lunalas do have a little bit of bulk invested in them, and especially if the opposing Xerneas, for example, doesn't have much offense invested there, then yeah, maybe it really comes down to how it was trained, but the critical hit, unfortunately, pretty much sealed the game there.
Yeah, and one thing important to note about Ditto's transform is that while it will copy every other stat that the opposing Pokemon has, the HP actually stays the same, which means that you might not necessarily have the same bulk, or you might have more bulk depending on what you transform into.
Right.
So, if you transform into that Shedinja, hypothetically, you have a pretty gnarly Shedinja. But, if you transform into that Groudon, you most likely will not have the same amount of bulk as that opposing Groudon.
Yeah, I really don't expect to see
I don't expect to see it either.
in this one.
I'm saying hypothetically as an example to the viewers at home.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Gabriel brought the best Pokemon in this matchup.
Yeah.
And it is a little bit hard to play around because what Ditto copies is absolutely critical. I feel like Zheyuan also brought the Pokemon that made the most sense. Salamence could be an adjustment if he is actually worried about his Groudon getting copied, because that was something that looked like was definitely possible. I mean, Salamence also gives you some Tailwind options, but a little bit hard, obviously, to bring into against a Xerneas matchup.
Both players are now getting ready to start Game 2, jump into Team Preview, and go back to the drawing board. So again, Gabriel had all the pieces. It's just so close. I mean, again, that critical hit, we're not sure if it mattered or not. It was close. Critical hit guaranteed the KO, but again, we never know with just things like this, because we don't know exactly what's gone on to the prep of these players and exactly what they're training their Pokemon to possibly survive or be able to one-hit KO.
Yeah, either way, Ditto is going to be essential, I think, for Gabriel here. It was a crucial Pokemon in that last matchup, but I think it will be once again, and I think for Zheyuan, it's going to be a little bit hard to play around that. The best answer is getting some speed control up with Salamence if it is running Tailwind, or maybe you're just comfortable dealing with Ditto, saying, okay, you're only able, if he forces, for example, knockouts and forces a Ditto to switch into a specific slot, that also could be a game changer. So we'll see how this plays out. I mean, that was definitely a really, really close game, and I expect to see the same Pokemon, at least from Gabriel. For Zheyuan, I just don't think you bring Shedinja into this matchup when you're going up against Kangaskhan and the...
No, not at all.
Yeah. And like you mentioned, the Ditto could copy the Shedinja, which would definitely make things very interesting.
Yeah.
I don't think that's
Shedinja,
it's not something I'd ever expect to see.
It's all hypothetical at this point. I'm just thinking about it in my head right now.
Yeah.
Granted, you don't have the Focus Sash, but I mean, you can, and I'm pretty sure you don't train your Shedinja to be bulky.
Right.
But, it is something to just wonder about if you're back at home.
I guess the question is kind of lead matchup here for Gabriel. I felt like he did not get the better end of the lead matchup last time going up against that Incineroar and that Tapu Koko. So, I mean, one thing you certainly can consider is maybe just leading Kangaskhan Xerneas immediately, trying to get a quick Geomancy off. Because last time around, Gabriel didn't get the Geomancy off with the Xerneas, and he kind of walked into Incineroar. So maybe leading something to prevent the early Snarl pressure and the early Tapu Koko pressure.
And here we go, jumping into Game 2 between both of these players. two very strong players going up against each other here. Gabriel versus Zheyuan. Here we go, Aaron. Game 2, buddy. Are you ready?
Let's see what the adjustments are.
Tapu Koko and Incineroar leads for Zheyuan on Gabriel's side, leading with Kangaskhan and Lunala.
So bringing the Kangaskhan this time around. Lunala, yeah, I mean, once again, same lead matchup actually from that last game, and Incineroar once again has a pretty good position. So more important information revealed this time. You know, the Tapu Koko is the Fairy Z, so it's not like a bulky Assault Vest variant. It does a lot of damage. Last time around, it felt like Zheyuan got the better end of this trade. He felt like he had a better lead matchup, and the Volt Switch into Xerneas was absolutely critical damage. So we'll see how it plays this time around. I think if the same Pokemon are brought once again, and with Incineroar and Tapu Koko both hitting on the field, you have to assume that Zheyuan does have Groudon and Xerneas in the back. So I feel like Gabriel definitely has the tools to win, given what we saw last time, especially if he's able to maybe copy that Groudon.
Yeah, and you know, Tapu Koko does switch out. That does lead an opening for Lunala, possibly just go for the Z move right away. Yeah, just trying to get as much damage out on that field as possible. Kangaskhan, Mega Evolving here, getting that Joey out of the pouch, getting that Parental Bond ability, getting that extra hit. Again, we saw it play out in round 1 with that Bite extra flinch chance, which, if this Kangaskhan carries, is always an option, as Kangaskhan on Gabriel's side uses Fake Out onto that Incineroar, making sure that it cannot Fake Out at all.
Yeah.
But not even going for Fake Out this turn at all. Tapu Koko on Zheyuan's side using Volt Switch again, landing into that Lunala, allowing Zheyuan to try to pivot here, trying to see what he wants to send out.
Yeah, but no Protect this time around, so that means either a free Z move into that Tapu Koko slot or just a Tailwind. So both are very, very good options. So.
Yeah, so Groudon takes the field here, will revert using that red orb into its primal Groudon form. And this could be a lot of damage if Gabriel decides to go for a Z move. And like you mentioned, that Tailwind will be so crucial later on just to provide speed support.
All right, let's see. Which one of the two options is it going to be? Both are pretty good, but it will be kind of an awkward position going into the next turn, especially after the Intimidate.
Yep. Ooh, just a Moon Geist Beam. All right, just using Moon Geist Beam to try to get damage out onto that field. So not even trying to set up and wants to save that Z move for just a little bit later. Maybe Gabriel wants to try to find the most opportune time to use it to deal as much damage as possible. And that did some good damage to that Groudon, though.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see how this next turn plays out. I mean, Groudon it does have the potential, obviously, to go for Precipice Blades, but it's going to be slower than Kangaskhan and Lunala. Kangaskhan won't be able to get a one-hit KO onto it with something like Double Edge after the Intimidate, so might have to double up onto the Groudon if you want to guarantee the knockout. Alternatively, you can use Kangaskhan to target down the Incineroar and Z-move the Groudon if you want to guarantee the knockout there. But yeah, I think like Gabriel not wanting to just go full offense here, wanting to try to pivot a little bit better because he is intimidated with Kangaskhan, of course.
Yep, Xerneas switches in, exerting that Fairy Aura. And now it looks like Lunala uses Wide Guard.
Big reveal.
Yeah, so that Wide Guard will protect Gabriel's team from spread moves as Groudon uses Precipice Blades, and that hits into that Wide Guard instead of those two Pokemon. Incineroar will be able to move here, though. Maybe going for a Snarl, but no, uses a U-turn instead, hits into that Xerneas, and will allow Zheyuan to switch.
Yeah, had a Snarl gone off there, it would have been super bad for Zheyuan, but nice move to go for the U-turn. We all see that with Incineroar often so much just to give some better positioning and pivoting here, so Zheyuan will get a free switch in. Big reveal there, though, with the Wide Guard. Effectively making Groudon, I mean, it's just so much harder to get good damage out with Groudon because Precipice Blades hits Gabriel's team for so much damage, so really nice move there. However, the Tapu Koko is back out. We saw that at the Fairy Z move. We know there's the Fairy Aura out right now for Xerneas, so the threat of the Z move here right now is still immense.
Yeah, and it got the knockout last game on that Xerneas, but Xerneas had just a little bit more damage dealt to it.
Yep.
So might not be able to get the KO from this range. I mean, that seems to be a fairly decently bulky Xerneas, you know, more so than the variants that are just all-out offense. Just get up that Geomancy as fast as possible and deal as much damage as possible. Yeah,
there are a lot of questions here with Lunala reviewing Wide Guard. You know, gotta wonder if it's actually still carrying Protect or not. If you don't think it's carrying Protect, maybe you'll launch the Z move into Lunala. Groudon, of course, could go for like a single target Precipice Blades, maybe even a Roar if it's carrying it as a tech move here. And oh, there's Ditto, and it's copying the Groudon this time. That's what I wanted to see last time around.
Yeah, so Ditto transforming now, using that Imposter ability into Primal Groudon with that Choice Guard.
Oh!
Tapu Koko on Zheyuan's side using Discharge has a chance to paralyze this Xerneas here with its increased chances, but no paralysis at all. Groudons are immune to it, and Xerneas easily able to set up a Geomancy, but Groudon now will be able to move, possibly go for a Precipice Blades if Zheyuan want to do that, unless, you know, the fact that there is Wide Guard out onto the field scared Zheyuan away from using Precipice Blades. So what is Zheyuan's Groudon doing here? Just going to go for a Precipice Blades.
Oh, fire punch!
Fire punch, though.
Will survive.
Hits into that Xerneas slot. Big damage.
Oh,
and Xerneas hangs on with just a sliver of hit points.
Oh, that's so huge there.
Wow.
Now you've got to set up Xerneas with the threat of Dazzling Gleam, of course, and Precipice Blades. The upside, though, is it will fall to something like a fake out, but I guess Xerneas can just protect. So I feel like Gabriel should actually have full control of this game right now, being able to just spam Precipice Blades and Dazzling Gleam.
Yeah, Zheyuan protects his Groudon as Xerneas uses Dazzling Gleam. That's going to do big damage to this Tapu Koko that is much more offensive-oriented here. Hits in that Tapu Koko slot and gets the one-hit KO. So, you know, Zheyuan will see what Groudon, the Ditto, sorry, on Gabriel's side locks into, but it's just a Precipice Blade. So now Zheyuan has to try to figure out a way to bypass this Precipice Blades, and one good way to do that is an Incineroar Fake Out.
Yeah, I mean, the Incineroar Fake Out here is good, so if you expect the Xerneas to protect here, maybe call it, go for the Fake Out onto the opposing Groudon, and go for a Precipice Blades. So, I mean, if Gabriel wants to play this safe, it's still probably better just to protect the Xerneas, because then you get a free switch it into Lunala as well. So he's basically playing with 3 restricted Pokemon right now, which is why Ditto is actually such a critical Pokemon in this matchup. So Gabriel here definitely can play it safe. Probably don't want to risk eating up a Fake Out into the Xerneas and then missing, for example, Precipice Blades. That would be absolutely deadly. So we'll see if he decides to play a little bit more conservative here or not. Maybe he's worried about like a Roar. And all right, no protect.
Fake Out. Hits into that Xerneas, gets a KO. Now Gabriel's Ditto is going to be able to move.
Will it connect?
Is it going to connect? Ditto uses Precipice Blade, hits both Pokemon. So that is going to be huge right there, doing big damage to the Groudon on Zheyuan.
Oh, survives!
Hangs on, though, with just a sliver of hit points again. Oh, man, again, so much bulk, and Zheyuan reacting here. Groudon uses Precipice Blade.
Oh, misses! Oh, man.
What is happening, Aaron?
Oh, that probably would have gotten the knockout single target with Ditto's lower HP stat as well. So, wow, this has been a crazy, crazy game. But, yeah, that's one of the downsides of Precipice Blades. Yeah, Gabriel actually opted to gamble a little bit, not going for the Protect there. Now Kangaskhan comes out, can go for the safe Fake Out onto Xerneas and go for a Precipice Blades. Xerneas here most certainly will be protecting, I think. So it's a question of, does the Precipice Blades connect with Groudon? If Gabriel wants to predict the Xerneas protecting, he actually, of course, can target the Groudon with something like a Fake Out or a Double Edge. But that does leave the opportunity for Xerneas to Geomancy. So you expect the Xerneas to protect here, but maybe...
There's 2 moving pieces here.
Yeah, exactly.
There's 2 moving cogs, and we just don't know how they're going to spin. As Xerneas uses Protect, and that's... looks like Gabriel now hoping that this Ditto will be able to connect a Precipice Blades as Kangaskhan uses Fake Out. Safe play into that Xerneas Protect. That's totally acceptable. And here comes Ditto's Precipice Blades, and it lands in the Protect, but does it connect with the Groudon? It does. Big damage dealt over on Zheyuan's side. Gets the KO on the opposing Groudon. So now it's going to be Xerneas versus Kangaskhan. This Ditto that is transformed into Primal Groudon, and Lunala still hiding in the back with that Z move intact.
Yeah, I mean, that's most certainly going to seal up the game. Kangaskhan should be faster than Xerneas just by itself. Xerneas can't really deal with the Ditto that's transformed into Groudon. So excellent, excellent Ditto usage in this game for Gabriel. That's exactly why I wanted to see it.
Oh, dodges the Precipice Blades there as Kangaskhan uses Double Edge. Lands in that Xerneas, does decent damage, about 50%, so that's good to know for future games as well, as Xerneas now using this turn to set up a Geomancy, so it won't be able to survive 2 attacks, so...
I guess theoretically, actually, Zheyuan could still win this if every single Precipice Blades misses on Groudons, and you just click Dazzling Gleam here this turn.
That's true.
Hope for another Precipice Blades miss, and maybe it can actually even survive a single target Precipice Blades. I don't expect it to be the case, especially because the Groudon is quite offensive, but yeah, I mean, that actually opens up the window a little bit, at least for Zheyuan. I mean, that's exactly what we were talking about earlier. Copying Groudon means you have to deal with the inaccuracy of Precipice Blades, and you're going to be using Precipice Blades every turn because of the Choice Scarf item. So we'll see if right now Zheyuan can maybe dodge a couple of more of those.
How much PP do you get when you transform?
I actually don't know.
Is it still 5? Because I remember that from Red, Blue, Yellow. I have not used a Ditto in a very long time.
It has definitely been a while.
Yeah.
I think he'll have enough in this game, though, because at this point it's a question of you're clicking it every turn. Although I guess theoretically that actually does open the opportunity to protect maybe with Xerneas.
Ditto switches out there.
Actually, that's a 100% win condition. Yeah, that's a really smart play there.
Yeah. As Lunala takes the field, as Xerneas uses Dazzling Gleam. Yep. So worst comes to worst, Ditto comes right back in, transforms into Xerneas, which is what it's going to do right here. So Gabriel really just covering and patching all the holes in his plan.
Yeah, I don't think there's any way around this. I'm trying to think, even if the Xerneas Moonblast doesn't knock out the opposing Moonblast, like, you have to... I mean, maybe...
There's no way.
No,
I don't think there is.
I was thinking maybe you click Dazzling Gleam, but then Lunala here just can click Wide Guard anyway.
Yeah.
So I guess it's if Zheyuan's Xerneas survives, Dazzling Gleam does happen. Or sorry, Lunala clicks Wide Guard, and then Xerneas crits the Ditto with the Moonblast. Then you'll win. So the question is, do you Wide Guard here with Lunala, or do you go for just something like a Psyshock? Because then a crit Dazzling Gleam could potentially win.
Xerneas instead uses Protect, gonna scout out to see what Gabriel's Ditto will be doing this turn, as Lunala actually goes for a Wide Guard. So now some stuff is afoot here.
Yep.
Yeah. As Ditto uses Moonblast, so now Zheyuan has to try to figure out what he wants to do. Is Gabriel gonna do the exact same thing?
Right. The other question is Moonblast enough to knock out Zheyuan's Xerneas right now? It's going to be really close. Yeah, I mean, I think the win con here is to just click Moonblast onto the Ditto now. Okay, no Wide Guard. Here's the first Moonblast.
Yep, so here is the first Moonblast.
Is it enough?
Xerneas, and that is enough. The critical hit on top, yeah. Again, it's one of those moves where you just don't know how much players have invested in their training for these Pokemon.
Right.
So the critical hit is just absolutely guaranteed. So, wow. What a game two.
Kind of feels like justice for, that first game after the critical hit happened onto Lunala. So, I mean, this is a really interesting matchup because both players, I mean, obviously Gabriel doesn't actually have a Groudon, but he can copy a Groudon, and effectively with no resist to ground, both players are kind of just eating up big Precipice Blades left and right. Obviously, a really huge miss there earlier from Zheyuan's end, missing the Groudon.
Oh, that was so huge.
Yeah, which was unfortunate, but that is kind of one of the factors you have to play with when you're using Groudon in this format.
Yeah, and of course that Precipice Blades on Gabriel's Ditto. Yes, I said that, Ditto, Precipice Blades in the same sentence, but that Ditto's Precipice Blades did not get the KO on Zheyuan's Groudon at about 50%.
Yeah.
It hung out by just a little bit, so...
Right, I mean, one of the critical turns there was that Xerneas opted not to protect, kind of saying, okay, you might want to just fake out and Precipice Blades my Groudon, and if you do that, then I will just be able to get a big attack off here with Xerneas before it faints, something like a Moonblast, for example. So, felt like maybe it was just more consistent to protect the Xerneas, because if Xerneas protects her, you get the free switch into Lunala if the Groudon faints to the Precipice Blades. Obviously, that didn't even happen because of the miss, so I was, you definitely could understand why he didn't protect the Xerneas there, but I felt like maybe it still would have been a little bit safer just to guarantee that you have the Xerneas around.
Yeah, and that was... well positioned, and of course Gabriel really playing those outs. We were worried about possible Precipice Blades power points running out. Gabriel said, well, you know what, this Geomancy Xerneas seems like a good thing to transform into as well, switch out that right away, and right as you mentioned it too, so that was definitely a good win condition.
Yeah, so here we go, going into Game 3. The tricky thing for Zheyuan here is, once again, you have to worry about the Ditto so much. It's pretty much going to copy Xerneas or Groudon, so what's the best way to deal with it? I mean, I feel like it's really tough to give up either Incineroar or Tapu Koko, because Tapu Koko with the Z move is doing so much damage. Incineroar is obviously good for fake out and U-turn support. Once again, I really don't think you bring Shedinja into this matchup. Salamence certainly could be an option, but then you give up one of Incineroar and Tapu Koko, and both are really, really good. Salamence a lot harder to play with as well. In fact, the Ditto can even transform into Salamence, and that could give your own Groudon some trouble. So, I mean, I really wouldn't be surprised to see the same 4 Pokemon. I think that Zheyuan might just have to think about a lead adaptation, because
you don't want to allow that Ditto to transform into that Groudon again.
Yeah.
Because you don't really have anything that can deal with that, an opposing Groudon on, like, you have to prepare for the Lunala, you have to prepare for the Xerneas, but then to deal with that Groudon again, that's kind of tough.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, lead adjustment might be the best approach here for Zheyuan, as opposed to maybe bringing new Pokemon. Just think it's really hard to gamble with
and board position. You just don't want that Groudon to be out on the field when that Ditto takes the field as well.
Yeah, it's just hard to guarantee that, because if Groudon's out on the field, all it takes is Ditto to switch in at any given point. So I guess the key thing is that Groudon will want to go for a Precipice Blades on the turn that Ditto is switching in. One of the really nice plays, I mean, obviously that last game was going for making kind of the wide guard mind games, and yeah, here is a nice adjustment by Zheyuan this time around, putting on some more offense instead of bringing Incineroar right away.
Tapu Koko and Xerneas leads for Zheyuan. Over on Gabriel's side, Gabriel leading with Lunala and Xerneas here, so very offensive options for both players now.
All right, let's see where this goes. Of course, there is the threat of a potential tailwind from the Lunala. As always, you have to worry about Wide Guard. Tapu Koko, however, exerting an immense amount of pressure with the Fairy Z move, being able to maybe just one-hit KO the Xerneas, depending on how it's trained. I'm not too sure about that. Discharge reveal actually last game was huge too. You know, the chance of paralysis with Discharge is actually quite high, so that certainly could shut something like a tailwind down. I don't expect to see it immediately in this game, but yeah, I mean, both Xerneas are obviously exerting Geomancy pressure, which is really, really scary because neither player wants a Geomancy to go off this early on in the game.
Yeah, you don't want to be staring down a Geomancy Xerneas at the start of the game because that just allows it more turns to try to take advantage of that Geomancy, and there aren't really many Geomancy Xerneas counters on the field currently, so Xerneas would just be running rampant.
Yep. So let's see if Lunala will want to get a Tailwind up. It should be able to survive any attack from that Tapu Koko. And ooh, here's the D-move right away.
A twinkle tackle from the Tapu Koko on Zheyuan's side. Just going to try to dish out as much damage as it possibly can here. This twinkle tackle did a lot of damage to that Xerneas, boosted by that Fairy Aura. So I don't believe it's going to be enough to one-hit KO the Xerneas. It's going to be a lot, but not quite enough to get the KO, I feel like. And Xerneas does hang on, yeah. As Xerneas on Zheyuan's side goes for a Dazzling Gleam, though, trying to get the KO
here. Is it enough? Oh,
no. Not enough. And here comes another Z move, a menacing Moonrise Maelstrom from Gabriel's side. That Lunala is trying to dish some damage. Is it going to target down the Xerneas, or is it going to just get the KO on that Tapu Koko? Are both players just trying to dish out as much damage and try to get the KO with the Dazzling Gleam here? I think so.
Kind of surprised to see the Dazzling Gleam come out there instead of the Moonblast, though. Maybe really confident a Fairy Z move and a Dazzling Gleam would knock out Xerneas, but Gabriel's Xerneas proves to be very, very bulky there, taking both attacks. Really...
This might be the end here for Zheyuan's Xerneas here, because Menacing Moonrise Maelstrom might do more damage, and maybe Gabriel decided to target down with a
Let's see. Oh my
one-hit KO.
Wow.
Straight up, one-hit KO. Big damage from Gabriel.
Is there a Geomancy? Oh, there is.
Geomancy. So Gabriel really just taking advantage of this first turn here. So much damage dealt on that board, but key thing right there is Zheyuan just did not go for that Moonblast into that Xerneas.
Yeah.
Gabriel's side.
Really wanting to break the Shadow Shield there and Lunala, and gets punished heavily for it. I mean, had he just traded knockouts with the Xerneas, I think even if Lunala had Shadow Shield off, then you're still actually in a decent position because you've traded Z moves. Lunala's gotten rid of its strongest means of option. You can bring in Groudon, and the Ditto, which has to replace the Xerneas, has to copy the Tapu Koko instead of the Groudon. Instead, now Xerneas is fully set up. Zheyuan's already lost Xerneas, and that means that Ditto will most surely be able to copy the Groudon in the back. So it is really going to be difficult, I think, for Zheyuan to come back from this. He gambled a little bit, hoping to get the knockout onto the Xerneas. Turns out like Gabriel's Xerneas is very, very slow, but very, very bulky. That seems to be a very common trend with the Xerneas as we've seen so far on stream today.
Wow. Gabriel is playing this game just well. I mean, he's just dealing damage, setting up at the right times. Incineroar on Zheyuan's side takes the field. Intimidate, not going to matter at all, but it does provide fake out support to be able to make that Xerneas flinch. You have to watch out for the wide guard if Incineroar decides to go for a possible Snarl, though.
Yeah, this turn, obviously, Xerneas can just protect, and once again, we have the mind games of, is it going to protect or not? I think this time, probably should protect, but, of course, Gabriel can capitalize off that by going for any attack with Lunala or just going for a switch out. Looks like he's going to opt for the latter. Incineroar, definitely a great switch in here. Now you have full fake out pressure. This next turn can just go for something like fake out onto the Incineroar and a Dazzling Gleam. So for Zheyuan's end, if he Volt switched into the Incineroar and gets the switch in a Groudon, that's probably the best case scenario for him.
Yeah, and Incineroar on Zheyuan's side switching out, so kind of just switching it out there and switching it right back out.
Well, that's a really clever play if the Volt Switch goes off, because then you recycle the Fake Out should Xerneas protect. So the big question here is, did Xerneas protect? Because if it did, and the Volt Switch goes off into the Incineroar slot, you'll be able to get a second Fake Out off. Really nice play there by Zheyuan.
Yeah, so a bait right there as Groudon reverts to its primal Groudon form, and now...
Did Xerneas attack or protect?
Xerneas does protect right there, so Zheyuan trying to play the field here, possibly going for the Volt Switch here. No, just going straight for a discharge, though. Instead, possibly a paralysis chance here onto the opposing Incineroar. So some damage dealt to that Incineroar. Is there a paralysis? There is paralysis there. That, of course, with paralysis, it has a chance to not be able to move.
All right, yeah, so, I mean, this next turn now, Xerneas is free to attack, but Tapu Koko does have Protect, right? So you can just go for, like, a double Protect here to bypass the first turn of Fake Out and then click Precipice Blade. So Zheyuan certainly not out of it yet, just is still in a really tricky position because all three of his Pokemon are weak to ground types attacks. Yeah. And as soon as Ditto replaces in the Groudon, then you're going to be in a really tricky position. In fact, maybe here, I was thinking maybe you actually, if you predict the Groudon to Protect, just hard swap Incineroar out into the Ditto, copy out, and then you just click Precipice Blade's Dazzling Gleam. So this is going to be a big turn. Does Zheyuan fear the Ditto switching enough to just attack with the Groudon? And for Gabriel's end, okay, no switch out here. Let's see.
Tapu Koko protects itself here, preserving it for later on. As Incineroar uses Fake Out though,
nice
hits into that Groudon slot on Zheyuan's side, so not too worried. Critical hit, just extra damage on top. That we call that gravy, as Tapu Koko protects itself from the Dazzling Gleam. Does hit into that ground. That does a lot of damage to that ground over there as Groudon flinches. So no switches just yet, but is this the turn where the switch happens?
Well, that's a big turn regardless. I mean, Gabriel called it correctly there, saying like the Groudon is going to attack there. I'm going to get some free damage off of Dazzling Gleam. The Tapu Koko protecting now also means that you can kind of Moonblast that slot if you want to get a guaranteed knockout. Gabriel might still not want to deal with the potential miss chances, so perhaps he protects the Xerneas here, hoping to just get, hoping Incineroar faints and then getting a free switch in into the Groudon, or the Ditto in the back, which will transform into Groudon. But I think Gabriel right now really in the driver's seat of this game. Nice call that last turn.
Yeah, and again, you know, that Ditto probably just waiting in the back. Groudon on Zheyuan's side switches out, does not want to stay in. Will switch into that Incineroar and Intimidate onto Gabriel's Incineroar. Might pay off. I mean, Incineroars haven't really been dealing that much damage at all, so not going to matter at all on that Xerneas. Xerneas uses Dazzling Gleam, so again, just contend to just try to spread as much damage as possible. Tapu Koko cannot hang on. A critical hit on the Incineroar does more damage than Zheyuan would have wanted here, as Incineroar is paralyzed and cannot move, whether it was going to go for an attack or a possible U-turn and try to pivot. Who knows?
Either way, I like that play from Gabriel's end, actually. No need to even Moonblast. I mean, the Moonblast would do more damage, obviously, on the Incineroar switch in, but Dazzling Gleam pretty much covers all your options. It will knock out the Tapu Koko. So if Tapu Koko stays in, that gets knocked out. If it switches out into Incineroar, that takes a ton of damage. Groudon also takes a ton of damage. Covering kind of all of his options there. So, nice play there. I mean, I feel like just losing Xerneas turn 1 on Zheyuan's end while not knocking out the opposing Xerneas was so bad, and he really kind of risked it committing the Z move and the Dazzling Gleam, and kind of underestimated the bulk of Xerneas on Gabriel's end. So, he is in a phenomenal position right now. I mean, Ditto by itself will be able to just press his blades to win. Right now, I think Xerneas certainly protects here, and then you'll be able to just click Moonblast onto Incineroar, or even a Dazzling Gleam, and then Lunala will be able to finish this game off. So, Gabriel will most certainly win this game. Pretty much impossible for him to lose unless he makes some very odd switches.
Groudon uses Precipice Blades, lands into that Xerneas Protect, but does connect with the Incineroar on Gabriel's side, gets the KO from that range, so another knockout. But as you said, there's a lot of danger awaiting, hiding on Gabriel's bench here as Incineroar Flare Blitzes into that Xerneas slot, just trying to spread as much damage as possible. Probably saw that Protect coming anyways, and maybe just wanted to try to get as much damage as possible, maybe expecting a switch of some sort. As Gabriel now gets to decide what to switch in. If it's that Lunala, yep, there's that Lunala. We'll be able to just go for a Moon Geist Beam to try to get the KO on that Groudon. I mean, it did a lot of damage in the previous games.
Yeah, the first one I think did just under 50%, so, I mean...
Dazzling Gleam.
Yeah, either way though, I mean, I don't think there's really any out here. You just Moonblast the Incineroar, Moongeist Beam the Groudon. He actually helps for Dazzling Gleam. If Incineroar survives this, could be interesting. Although Moongeist Beam should knock out Groudon.
Oh, Incineroar gets KO'd as Groudon takes a lot of damage, but now a Moongeist Beam is actually going to connect with that Groudon, and that does it. Gabriel Agati of Brazil defeats Zheyuan Huang in a really close 3-game set, man. That was intense to watch.
Yeah, I mean, turn 1 of this game, though, kind of won, I think, Gabriel the game instantly. He played incredibly well.